Hello, I'm Sarah Turnquist, and I wanted to share a little bit about the research I did for Convenient Risk Book 4, A Convenient Escape. I remembered stories I'd heard and read about the Apache rebel Geronimo, so I ventured into some research. The Chiricahua Apache, one of the several divisions within the Native American Apache tribe, resisted efforts by the Spanish and American peoples to colonize the southwestern United States, wishing to keep them from settling on Apache land. Westward expansion of mines, ranches, and communities of settlers brought new problems and foes to these Native American groups, challenging the Apache way of life. Additionally, in 1848, the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo brought the Mexican-American War to an end, and much of the modern-day American Southwest was ceded to the United States, including land that the Apache had lived on for centuries. In 1854, the Gadsden Purchase gave the U.S. even more land in what would become Arizona and southwestern New Mexico. Can you imagine the tension here? With settlers moving westward, trying to make a way of life, and the Native American groups trying to hold on to what had been theirs. In this tension, we see Geronimo rise. In 1829, he was born in modern-day Arizona in the upper Gila River country. He belonged to the smallest band within the Chiricahua tribe, the Bedonkohe. I know I probably mispronounced that. It was a small but mighty group of about 8,000 people. He was born with the name Goyakla, or one who yawns. He takes on the name Geronimo as a young man after distinguishing himself in raids against Mexico, in modern-day Sonora and Chihuahua, Mexico. The source of his renaming is disputed. Some historians believe it was due to the cries of frightened Mexican soldiers calling out for the Catholic saint, Saint Jerome, when facing Geronimo in battle. Other historians say it's a mispronunciation of his given name. This name, Geronimo, would later take on a new life during World War II when paratroopers would yell, "Geronimo!" before jumping from planes, as a reference to Geronimo's bravery. Geronimo was known among his people as a naturally gifted hunter and leader. He was best known for being fearless and resisting anyone attempting to remove his people from their tribal lands. By the time he came of age, the Apache were at war with the Mexicans to the south and the United States government to the north, and neighboring Comanche and Navajo tribes. He had led 4 successful raids on nearby tribes by the time he was 17 and was admitted to the Warriors' Council in 1846. He fell in love with and married the chief's daughter, but while he was away on a trading trip in 1851, Mexican soldiers attacked his family's camp. His wife, 3 children, and his mother were all killed in the raid. In his autobiography later, he would say of this time, "I had lost all." In grieving his loss, he ventured into the forest where he claimed to have heard a voice saying, "No gun will ever kill you. I will take the bullets from the guns and I will guide your arrows." Swearing revenge against Mexico, he devoted his life to avenging his family and led a series of raids on Mexican soldiers and settlements. He was never a tribal chief himself, but was known for his skills as a medicine man. He was credited with different supernatural powers throughout his life, including the ability to heal the sick, having the power to slow time and avoid bullets, bring on rainstorms, and see things from across great distances. In 1872, the United States government created a reservation for the Chiricahua Apache that included at least a portion of their homeland. And Geronimo's father-in-law, who, remember, was a chief, believed that he could see where the tribe's future was headed. So he halted his own war with the Americans and agreed to move his people to this reservation, which again at this time was established on a prized piece of Apache land. The chief died within the next few years, however, and the federal government went back on their promise of this land. And in 1874, the government moved some 4,000 Apache north into the San Carlos Reservation in Arizona, which was more of a barren wasteland than they'd had. There, the Chiricahua were forced to join other Apache groups. The Chiricahua were never happy with the prospect of reservation life to begin with, even when it was a better situation, and they became angrier at this situation. With scarce resources, they were no longer able to fulfill traditional tribal rights, and they were short on rations. So they turned to Geronimo and others who led them to escape what they viewed as imprisonment so they could return to their historically nomadic lifestyle. But these leaders also led them in raids, plunging the region into turmoil. Geronimo and his followers would break out of the reservation on 3 separate occasions over the next decade. He was elusive and aggressive, raiding both Mexican and American settlements, even attacking civilians, going so far as to ambush stagecoaches and wagon trains. His belief that no bullets could harm him appeared to be true. He escaped skirmishes with law enforcement, Americans and Mexicans. He was wounded several times, but always recovered. This made him even more of a newspaper sensation. Geronimo and his band brought violence to the region. They would resurface from hiding out to strike at a target on both sides of that U.S.-Mexican border. Newspaper headlines blared his name often. Stories of his ruthlessness, real and imagined, were on the front page across the United States. In September 1886, Geronimo surrendered yet again at Skeleton Canyon in Arizona, making him the last Native American leader to formally surrender to the U.S. Army. The general promised that they would be able to return to Arizona after an unspecified time of exile in Florida. However, Geronimo would never return to Arizona. He and his fellow Apache were assigned to hard labor at Fort Pickens, Florida, then transported to Mount Vernon Barracks, Alabama, and finally to modern-day Oklahoma in 1894, where they were labeled prisoners of war, and they were imprisoned at the Comanche and Kiowa Reservation near Fort Sill. Geronimo spent the last 23 years of his life as a prisoner of war. The last 14 were spent at Fort Sill. He first attempted to farm and joined the Dutch Reformed Church, which expelled him due to his inability to resist gambling. Geronimo left the reservation on occasion with government permission to attend World's Fairs and Wild West shows. He even participated in President Theodore Roosevelt's inauguration. By permission of the War Department, Geronimo was also allowed to sell photographs of himself and his handiwork at expositions. Before his death, he dictated his autobiography, Geronimo, his own story. In February 1909, he died of pneumonia. Apache medicine men would say that the Apache are only free when they die. I love bringing real history into fiction, but it is a bit of a balance to keep the fictional story moving and delve into the richness of this history. Now, if you enjoyed this true story of the Old West, then check out my other video about one of the most well-known outlaws in American history. And don't forget to subscribe.